I don't have a skit planned for this week. I apologize. I did not have the times or the means to do a skit that I would like to do for this movie because it's a pretty cool movie. I feel like it's easy to figure out a skit to do for it. I didn't do it this week, so I'm so sorry. This one's a little bit boring, but you know what I do have? I finally got a ring light and I also have this Hello Kitty Band-Aid. So what do you think about that?
It's a Friday once again.
Hello and welcome back, my fellow freaks. I hope you guys have all had a good week. Today we are looking at a movie by one of my favorite horror directors, Stuart Gordon. He did Reanimator and From Beyond. From Beyond is like one of my favorite creature features of all time. And today we are looking at his movie Dolls from 1987. IMDb said, you know, can I tell you something that I've noticed? IMDb always has it like a year difference than what streaming services say that it came out. So on Tubi it says 87, on IMDb it says 86. Which is it? Can we just like get on the same page? What is the truth? But anyway, yes, we are looking at Dolls, and it's not exactly, I'm gonna tell you right now, this is probably like the tamest movie that I have reviewed on the channel so far. But it's something that I have had on my list for a really long time because let me tell you that every streaming service that has ever had Dolls on it has recommended me to watch it. And you know, there have been a few times where I do take a recommendation that a streaming service is providing to me. And a lot of the times it's worked out in my favor. I think one of the best examples is Amy in a Cage. I've done a review of that on my blog. I plan to cover it on the channel as well because I just love it so much. But like Amy in a Cage, Dolls has been recommended to me for years. And once I found out that Stuart Gordon was the director behind it, that's when I decided that, okay, maybe I should actually check this one out. But you know what I found out while watching it? Bitch, it is also a Charles Band production. Are you kidding? That says 3. Two of my favorite horror directors coming together in a horror movie about dolls. I'm pretty sure that, like, they knew I was coming. Like, they made this movie 10 years before I was born because they knew I was coming and they made this specifically for me. You can't tell me otherwise. Charles Band and Stuart Gordon made this movie specifically for me and nobody else. Anyway, once I saw his name pop across the screen, I was really excited. I was already excited about Gordon. Throw Charles Band in there, this is going to be a wild ride. So let's get into talking about Dolls. But first, if you are new here, hi, my name is STARGUTZZZ. Any crashing noises, loudness that you might hear going on in the background, those are my cats. And my reviews in general are more focused on a discussion of prominent parts of a movie, things that I believe make it good or bad, and review it that way, rather than just giving like a play-by-play rundown of every single thing that happens in the movie. Because of that, I try to refrain from spoilers as much as possible. However, spoilers will arise as they pertain to the discussion that I'm having with the movie. If you would like to watch Dolls before the rest of this review, you can do so on my favorite platform, Tubi TV. I'm not sponsored. You know, every video I am begging for that sponsorship. One day, my fellow freaks, we're gonna blow up and we're gonna get that Tubi sponsorship. I am telling you right now, we're gonna get there. We're gonna do it. I know it. But anyway, if you want to watch Dolls before the rest of this review, you can do so on Tubi. The link will be in the description. Again, not sponsored yet. So it is just that much easier for you to go out and watch this movie. And with it being only like a few minutes over an hour, it's an easy watch. It's pretty low stakes. And with that, let's just jump right on into this review. A dark and stormy night brings an ensemble of individuals into the home of an unusual elderly couple named Gabriel and Hilary Hartwick. Out of the ensemble is a dysfunctional family with a daughter named Judy, whose overactive imagination leads her to not being taken seriously once the couple's collection of dolls begin coming to life and killing people. There is one adult who believes her. His name's Ralph.
Trying to catch some talent, huh, Ralph?
They're just kidding.
Ralph is coined as the only good adult in this movie, and it's because he's still a child at heart. He still likes toys. Hey, can you believe that a movie named Dolls has a big focus on toys, what toys are to children, and the whimsical wonderment of play? So Ralph gets to stay alive while all of the bitter adults who do not take joy in childlike wonder are slowly picked off by these killer dolls who really aren't like all they seem to be. We're gonna talk about it. Let's start talking about it, okay? I've said it already, but this movie has a very whimsical tone to it. It's like the tone, the music especially, the music helps with the tone a lot. It is a whimsical fantasy. It gives kids movie vibes, okay? And I'm gonna touch on that more in a little bit. It gives like, what is it? Like, I never watched it, but I imagine that it has the same vibes as something like, Indian in the Cabinet. Get that Indian out of the cabinet. What's that movie called? Indian in the Cupboard. I was close. Oh, it was directed by Frank Oz. Then yeah, I haven't watched the movie. I can tell you right now, it has the same whimsical vibe as this one. Imagine, okay, this came out in '87. Imagine late '80s, early '90s TV movie for kids about toys coming to life, whimsical, magical fairy tale. That's the exact tone that this movie has, except it's a horror movie and the dolls are killing people. But at the same time, yes, it's a fantasy. It has the kid movie vibe, but it is like a dark fantasy. It has a lot of Gothic tones to it as well. And we're going to be getting into both of these things. First, let's focus on the fairy tale aspect. Now, I feel like this aspect I feel like it's somewhat common in a Charles Band movie. Maybe not common, but I have, like, if you watch the Puppet Master series, Puppet Master kind of has the same tone as Dolls, where it's like whimsical dolls coming to life, and there are people who like genuinely love the dolls and protect the dolls, but also anyone who doesn't, or anyone who goes against them, they kill. So I guess maybe I should more compare this movie to the Puppet Master series. But it's not just like the music and the aesthetics. The elderly couple, Gabriel and Hilary, they are also just like immediately. They act, they behave, their mannerisms. It's all like it came straight out of a fairy tale.
Go on and on. It's like one long night.
Exactly, my dear. The longest night in the world.
Although you very quickly realize that they are more like fairy tale antagonists than anything else. Spoiler alert for a movie that came out in the 80s, but they are witches.
What kind of work is that? Witchcraft?
Close to it.
What could get more fairy tale than two witches in a mansion with living dolls? Although they aren't like 100% antagonistic, they are really kind to Judy and Ralph. And it's because they display that, well, Judy's still literally a child, but Ralph is the only adult with like an exception because of his childlike wonder. And so Gabriel and Hilary kind of take a liking to them, and you kind of begin to wonder maybe what would have happened to Judy had things gone like another way. So there's a lot of references to Hansel and Gretel in this movie. And I know for a fact that that ain't no coincidence. I didn't even notice it in the beginning of the film, but the Hansel and Gretel references go as early on as like as soon as the movie starts. However, when I noticed it, it was when they were all eating dinner together and Hilary goes to pinch Judy's finger, telling her that she needs to plump up. When I saw that, I was like, That's like Hansel and Gretel. That's like Hansel and Gretel. This woman's a witch. And then a few minutes later, when Judy is put to bed and she is reading her Hansel and Gretel book again, she is specifically reading the scene.
But she wanted to fatten him up a little. The witch made sure that Hansel ate very well, and every day she would ask him to hold out his finger for her to pinch. She wanted to see how plump he had grown.
But it does leave some room for you to wonder, like, how might have the events gone had, you know, maybe if Judy was, like, not a good kid. I think those motherfuckers were gonna eat her. Like, let's be so for real. If she wasn't nice, maybe even if she was nice, we don't know. But don't you think it's awfully fucking suspicious for them to literally treat her like Hansel? Editing Rachel here, just really quick. Something that I realized is also part of Hansel and Gretel that I did not include in my initial recording is how the father and the stepmother treat the child. What in the story it would be 2 children, and Dolls is just the 1 child, but the way that they treat her and want to get rid of her is reminiscent of the Hansel and Gretel fairy tale. Along with the like literal references to fairy tales, there's also a lot of references to elves and fairies in the movie. Now, heads up, a little bit of a spoiler. I'll put like a timestamp right here in case you don't want to be spoiled. So the dolls, Judy catches on pretty fast that there's something weird about the dolls, or something weird about the mansion that they're all trapped in. She hears like giggling behind locked doors and stuff. She starts calling them elves. Now, if you ask me, yeah, okay, I get, yes, it could be elves. According to folklore, yes, they could be elves. But personally, I don't know. I felt like I got more fairy vibes, you know what I mean? She calls them fairies like once or twice, but then really sticks to the elf, the elf label. And then she goes on to call them little people instead. I don't know. Figure out what to call them. What are they? Like, later in the movie, it is revealed that there are more to these dolls than just simply being, like, dolls that are alive. As one of the other characters is attacking the dolls, you start to see the dark underbelly of what they look like beneath their skin and what these creatures truly are. However, it's pretty arguable about what the true nature of these dolls are. And I'm probably going to get into it a little bit more later, but all I want to touch on right now is the fact that we don't know if these dolls are transformed humans, like all of them. We know some of them are, but we don't know if all of them are, or if these are like genuinely, let's say, elves or fairies, which these witches have given them bodies to disguise themselves with, or to like live in. I've seen some people online go strictly with all the dolls are humans transformed, but yo, this has so much fairy tale vibes. I'm sorry, I can't believe that every single doll in there is a transformed human. Especially as we start looking at the underbelly of the dolls, it really matches with folklore of like elves or fairies. How just like grotesque and weird they look and act. We're dealing with witches, okay? You can't tell me that some of these dolls are not mystical beings in disguise. And I feel like it aids in this fairy tale tone even more. And it's really cool. It's a really cool conclusion. I'm gonna discuss how the dolls actually look on the inside a little bit more in a second. Now, although a lot of this movie is very heavily fairy tale based, very fantasy toned. It has a very classical Gothic narrative to it. Now, what do I mean by that? Because sometimes when somebody hears the word Gothic, they just think like The Cure. But no, I mean Gothic in the very classic traditional sense of the word, where we're looking at things like the perversion of nature, we're looking at dark, stormy edifices, we're looking at, you know, candelabras in the hallway, searching for a noise or a missing person. Which, by the way, I didn't mention this, but Dolls is filmed in the same house that they did From Beyond. I thought that was neat. But there are a lot of elements of this movie that just really reminded me of House on Haunted Hill, the one from 1959 with Vincent Price, not whatever the first result that showed up to me on Google was, which was like from the 2000s. No, the OG House on Haunted Hill. This movie reminds me a lot of that. I mean, it has one of the oldest plot devices in all of, like, Gothic literature. At least I'm willing to bet it does. A bunch of strangers find themselves trapped in a storm seeking refuge. They find the refuge. The refuge is this really creepy mansion. And the hosts are also very creepy and unsettling, and there's creepy stuff going on. People are going down hallways in the middle of the night with their little candelabra. There's a terrible storm happening outside that just makes it feel like the longest night ever. You can't get more Gothic than that. You cannot get more Gothic narrative than that. And I'm gonna be for real, because of this aspect of it, I think if it didn't have the, like, classic Gothic tone to it as well, then it would be hard to really call it a horror movie. This is honestly a really good movie to watch during October, like during the Halloween season, because of just this classic, simple Gothic narrative. Although, like I said, this is the tamest movie, maybe not that I've watched. This is the tamest movie I think that I have reviewed for the channel, at least so far. Like, you're not gonna see a whole lot of blood. You're not gonna see a whole lot of violence. Despite the Gothic narrative, there's so much of a fantasy tone in this movie that it does feel like a kid's movie. It feels at least kid-friendly. I think with the exception of 2 scenes, maybe 3, which would be considered like scary imagery. Other than those things, I would consider this a kid-friendly horror movie. I can very easily see like a group of 11-year-olds, let's say, maybe not like 5 or 6-year-olds. Maybe not kid-friendly then. Let's say preteen friendly. I would say 10 to 12 years old. Now granted, I don't talk. I don't communicate with like 10 and 11-year-olds at all. You know, forgive me if maybe my judgment on this is a little bit wrong, but I feel like this is a movie that it's a good beginning horror movie for like a kid, tween, whatever. I can very easily see a group of like 11-year-olds watching this together at like a Halloween party, you know? It is a very good baby's first horror movie, I think. I mean, I can't speak for everyone, and of course, every child is gonna receive horror differently. Some kids really love it. Some kids will literally keep their parents awake the entire night because they're so scared. I get it. But my mom would have let me watch this as a 10-year-old. Like, my mom was so stingy about me watching, like, blood and guts and horror. She would have okayed this though. She would have okayed me to watch this at 10 years old. I mean, maybe my mom's just cooler than your mom though, because she absolutely would have encouraged me to like have a Halloween sleepover and then turn this on for my friends, and we would have loved it. Now this week is another film that I genuinely don't have a whole lot to say about it. The main point is that it's a very Gothic fairy tale, but one aspect of this film that I felt like I really needed to touch on was the special effects. The special effects kind of blew me out of the water. Laugh at me all you want, it's fine. But they made these dolls seem so convincingly real. Now, I wasn't sure how much we would actually see the dolls in action. Obviously, I've seen like Puppet Master. I haven't seen Demonic Toys yet. I would like to perchance get to that this year. So I'm familiar with Charles Band, you know, working with small objects like Blade or the Ginger Dead Man or what have you, and how those special effects look, right? But I wasn't really sure if we would see the dolls in action in this one. And then I also wasn't sure how good the effects of the dolls would be, because I'm gonna be honest, I've seen quite a few of Charles Band's movies, and the special effects can kind of be hit or miss. Sometimes it can be really good, and then other times you can like literally see the human hand that's like controlling the doll to move. However, in Dolls, I feel like I was very pleasantly surprised. The first kill doesn't show the dolls moving at all, but the scene where they are finally shown in motion, like, it's so fluid and so natural looking. They did an incredible job on the special effects, practical effects. I don't know which one to really call it. I think I'll just use special effects as like an umbrella, I guess. But somehow they made these gross dolls look so real, so convincingly real. Just because their motions, the way they move, seems so natural. You can tell that it is a combination of puppetry and stop motion, and honestly, both of them, it's like some of the top best puppetry and stop motion I've ever seen. But they did such an incredible job on this, and I read online that this movie came out a year after it was actually filmed just for the doll effects, and I think that was worth it. It definitely paid out. The special effects are by far the best thing of this movie. I was so surprised. And the scene where this really shines is the scene where the stepmother Rosemary is being attacked by like just a stampede of dolls. I love that scene. It's so cool. I love watching the dolls in motion. Also, the dolls themselves are so effectively gross. Like, some of them look like normal, fine dolls, and then you get ones that look like this bitch. So creepy, so uncanny. I hate it. Well, I hate it and I love it whenever they have the bloodshot, realistic human eyes. Like the hyper-realistic bloodshot eyes. They're so effectively, like, discomforting. And to put added on top of that is when we get to see the underbelly of the dolls. When we start to see like the inside of them, whether it's like elves or fairies or humans, whatever it is that it's supposed to be, it's fucking gross. It's gross and it's unexpected, and I'm obsessed with this detail. Again, it packs onto the fairy tale aspect of it, where it feels like traditional folklore. Like, these mystical, gross-ass creatures have chosen these dolls as their vessels, and they're using these vessels to then like convince people to like trust them almost. I love that detail. I love it so much. And the way some of these gross motherfuckers look just reminds me of Hellboy 2, the Tooth Fairies. Anyway, that was a great detail. Although I have one complaint, or maybe not complaint. It's something that I noticed about this detail. All the dolls that we see ruined, for the most part, we get to see the gross underbelly of what's going on beneath the plastic or the wax or porcelain, I don't know, whatever they're made out of. We get to see their literal skulls and everything. So then, tell me why, when Mr. Punch gets his face kicked in, why is there nothing? Did anybody else notice that? Like, I feel like I need to have a discussion about this. Is he the only one? I think there might have been a few that Ralph kicked that didn't have any, like, gross underbelly. But is Mr. Punch the only one that, like, didn't have a skull or, like, a sub-body underneath him? Talk to me about it in the comments. I'm very interested about that. Why didn't he have one? Was it just like a detail that got forgotten, do you think? Or do you believe that there was a purpose to it? Let me know in the comments. Okay, like I said, there's not much to talk about this one. For the most part, it is just like a very simple, standard, easy to watch horror movie that uses a lot of fairy tale and Gothic elements in it. It's a very classic Gothic narrative that has whimsical fairy tale elements and themes thrown throughout. So I'm good. You know what I'm gonna call this movie? It's cute. This is a cute movie. But there's so much to it that feels like a horror movie you would be watching on Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network. Especially with how heavily it focuses on childlike wonder, remaining a child, keeping toys forever. There's a lot of child narrative stuff going on in this that would make it very kid friendly, you know, except for like those 2 to 3 scenes that I mentioned. I think this would be the perfect movie to watch during the Halloween season, during October, or if you're just wanting some pep in your step and want to feel some Halloween spirit. This is a really good Halloween time movie because, like I said, even though it has the whimsical fairy tale kid vibe to it, it also still reminded me a lot of old school horror movies like House on Haunted Hill. But even though it has this R rating, I would call this a kid friend, like baby's first horror movie. This is baby's first horror movie. So you might be curious, what tier would I put this at, especially if it feels very much like a kid's horror movie rather than like an R-rated horror movie? Well, it really wasn't that bad. I feel like I could watch this again, especially with a group of friends or with my family. I mean, I liked it. I did like it. Was I cuckoo bananas over it? No. But I did like it. I thought it was decent, and like I said, it's perfect for Halloween, so I'm gonna give this one a B tier. Now, it's not like the other Stuart Gordon movies that I've seen, like Reanimator or From Beyond, but there is a body horror sequence at the very end that does remind you that, like, hey, this is a Stuart Gordon movie. The special effects is definitely where this movie excels the most, but for the most part, just kind of generic classic horror movie. Nothing to really complain about, but also nothing to really write home about either. But I wouldn't give it a C. I wouldn't give it a C. So B tier, I think, is like the perfect place to place it. I did kind of like the fairy tale and fantasy aspects of this. Like I mentioned in my Leprechaun in the Hood movie review, I really like whenever folklore is used within a horror movie, and kind of goes hand in hand with fairy tale. I like fairy tale, fantasy, my lights just flickered, folklore horror. I'm really into that. And with that, we are done with yet another movie review. Thank you guys so much if you made it all the way until the very end. If you liked this video, make sure that you stab that like button. It is a free and easy way to help support my channel. I appreciate it very much. Also, if you just like this video so much that you want to hear me ramble about more B movies and disturbing cinema, consider hitting that subscribe button and the bell icon so you can be notified every time that I make a new upload, which is usually every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, is there a movie that you would really like to see me watch and review? Put it in the comments. Let me know about it. I like getting suggestions. I'm always open to suggestions. Tell me something you want me to review, and maybe you will see it on this channel. Thank you to anyone who considers liking and subscribing. Again, I appreciate it so much. Sometimes you can catch me live. I'll put it on the screen and in the description. The days vary depending on my schedule, but when I do go live, it is often at 6 or 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then somewhere on the screen are some more socials that you can find me at if you so wish to do that. Again, just thank you so much if you made it all the way until the very end. Our time here is precious. We never have a whole lot of it, and the fact that you just use your time to watch me talk about a fucking Charles Band movie. It's not, well, I mean, it's a Charles Band production, whatever. The fact that you just took your time to watch me talk about this fairy tale Gothic horror movie, I just thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I appreciate that you spend your time doing this. Thank you. If I do not see you on a live stream, I will see you guys in the next video. Have a good night and stay safe out there.
See just how bright you can get. Ow!